Hey guys, it's Meg. What's up? What's poppin'? Welcome to the podcast. Many of us have seen a stereotypical witch break out a spellbook on a movie or show. But what happens when you find one buried in your room? Because that is exactly what happened to me, and that is exactly what we're going to be talking about on this podcast episode, because I actually read the book and I read it in one day. And I made an Instagram short, and by the time this goes up, I would have hopefully uploaded it, because I'm going to be honest, I forgot I made one until I started talking about it. Hey, what's up? It's Editing Meg, and I meant to say YouTube short, not Instagram short, and it is up now, so go check out my YouTube page and like it. But basically what happened was last year, I was getting a new bookcase. So I was going through my books to put on the bookcase, obviously. And as I was going through my books, I came across a book. Let me grab it. Came across The Book of Spells, Vintage Edition. Bring the Power of the Good to Your Life, Your Love, Your Work, and Your Play by Nicola de Pulford. I looked at the book and I was like, where the heck did this come from? I don't remember buying it, but I had a bookmark and I had it all the way up to... So I read up to page 34 because that's where the bookmark was. So I clearly started it, but I have no clue where this book came from. There was a bookmark in it from a bookstore in Salem, Massachusetts. So I went up to my mom and I was like, hey, did you buy me this, or is this yours? And my mom was like, I've never seen this before in my entire life. So then I went up to my sister and I was like, hey, is this your book? Do you know where this came from? And she said the same thing. Nobody knows where this book came from. But when I was reading it the other day, I found a receipt in the back of the book from the bookstore in Salem, Mass. It is from October 21st of 2015. So I've had this book for 10 years in my room. I was 16 when I bought it. I don't know why. I don't even know what I was doing October 21st, 2015. I can't find any photo. I wonder if they're on my iPod, or they could be on my old phone. All right, Editing Meg's gonna come here because I'm gonna try to figure out what I was doing on this day, because I know I took pictures. I have to have pictures from somewhere. So I can't look for any photos because I have no clue where my phone is that I had in 2015. But I did check my Instagram archives and I did not see anything. But I'm just gonna say that this was a school field trip. But what's even funnier, so first off, receipt in the back of the book is still in very good condition. I can see everything. I paid cash. But yeah, I got it October 21st, 2015 at 11:29 a.m. Why wasn't I in school? It had to have been a field trip. And it said it was sold by Guy M. And then my order number was 121334. Yeah, if you're curious, it came from the Wicked Good Books in Salem, Massachusetts. And I'm pretty sure they still exist today. But let's talk about this book, because I learned actually a lot from it. So the very beginning of the book is talking about the basics of witchcraft and witches and the occult. And the first section you have is the occult. And it says, an occultist is someone who delves into hidden territory in search of its secret. And it said that in the past, people who were considered the occult were wise women, witches, and wizards. Now, I'm going to directly quote something from this book because I feel like it's pretty relevant in today's world with everything going on. And it is, fear, greed, envy, and hatred were the root causes of this relentless persecution. And it was talking about how witches, or people who were considered witches, literally had to go into hiding because they were being literally murdered. There were so many witch hunts, and witches trials that it actually became an industry. And then after that, we're going to go into some other cool things. So it talks about getting started. It talks about kind of the history and some background information. It also talks about you yourself and what you need to do to prep to read this book if you were to actually do these spells. Oh yeah, it also talks about the moon phases and how that can work along with these spells. But there's also a lot more to this book. It's not just a spell book. Yes, there's spells in it, but there's actually some history facts in it that were so cool to read. Okay, this is one of the coolest things I've read about. I've read the book, not you. And it's numerology. And it says it has its place in magic and can help you decide what numbers bring you luck or are dominant in your life. And it says magic by numbers. Now there's personal numbers, and it says to find your personal number, it has the letters A through Z. Oh, just kidding. It only has A through Y. And then it has like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's it. So it goes A, B, C, D, E. Whoa. I just realized it does not go in alphabetical order. I was going to read it to you, but honestly, I think I'm just going to post a picture of it on my Instagram because this is not in order like I thought. And I also just realized I never found my personal number. But basically what you do is you spell out your name. So they gave the example John Smith. So that is 175534145, which equals 35. But then you take that number and you add together, so that's 8. So John Smith's personal number is 8 because it goes 1 through 9, and then there's 11 and 22, which I feel like we talked about this with angel numbers. I didn't Megan comment to tell you when that podcast was because I forgot to write that down. I figured out my personal number, so if I use my middle name, I get 5. If I don't use my middle name, I get 6. And the angel number episode we did was from season 6, episode 7. But now I will read you the chart because it's pretty cool. It says number 1 is the pioneer, the leader, strong-willed, and sometimes self-centered. 1 is also associated with maternal wealth, loneliness, and isolation. 2 is the number of passive, receptive people, kind and sensitive, but who often get their way by gentle persuasion. It is also linked to psychic powers. 3 is a lucky number, representing extrovert, creative, and witty people. They may be extravagant and unable to preserve at one thing for long. 4 is for loyal, hardworking people who are good organizers. 4 people are guardian angels, fear in all their dealings, and often pay a high price for success. 5 is a number of fast-moving people, curious and impulsive, who hate to be tied down. And then it says 5 is also the number that can lead to problematic relationships. 6 is the perfect number and represents harmony, beauty, and affection. 6 people are creative and artistic, but they can be fussy and a little conceited. 7 is a magic number, representing the scholar and mystic, the dignified and self-possessed. 7 people may be aloof, as they have difficulty expressing themselves. 8 symbolizes intuition, prosperity, and organization. Strong and fertile, 8 people's success is built on hard work, which can make them seem pessimistic. 9 is for intellectuals and idealists. It is a number of great strength, self-discipline, and ambition. 9 people may seek the limelight and be jealous or fickle. 11 is a number for people who are idealists. 11 people have a strong vocation for their work and often suffer for the sake of others. And 22 is the master number and incorporates the supreme qualities and attributes of all the other numbers. And all of these fun facts came before any of the spells that come in, because the next one is colors. It said that every color has its own vibration and unique psychological effects. Color magic has been used in India and China as a part of their healing work for thousands of years. And now these are what the colors are. And then also colors also associate with numbers. So white is for psychic matters, dispelling evil spirits, and for beginning a new phase. Red represents life force, vitality, power, and determination, and attracts good luck. Pink is the color of love, recollection, friendship, happiness, and harmony. Orange symbolizes joy, optimism, and the will to succeed. Brown is a protective shield and denotes natural wisdom and an affinity with nature. Yellow stimulates the mind and represents achievement in learning. Green is restful and calming and symbolizes prosperity and fertility. Blue is the color of the spirit and represents healing, idealism, and occult protection. Purple is for spiritual strength, providing a link with higher planes. Black is for retribution and communicating with the dead and denotes endings and also the seeds of new beginnings. Silver is the color of visions and intuition and brings forth Latin potential. And the last color they give is gold, which symbolizes great achievement, wealth, and longevity. They have the numbers that we just talked about, so 1 is associated with white, 2, midnight blue, 3, moss green, 4, it says peat brown. I don't know what that means, P-E-A-T. 5, ruby red, 6, golden yellow, 7's purple, 8 is orange, 9 is mother of pearl and the color of the moon, 11 is silver, and 22 is gold. Then the book goes and talks about sacred trees and plants, saying that sacred trees have been a part of ancient cultures, and that trees varied according to geographic location, but their magical and spiritual significance was always shared. And examples they give is touching wood for luck, and hope, sense, and beliefs of communicating with tree spirits. Now, there's this thing called the Celtic tree calendar, and this is so interesting. I did not know this was a thing. But to the Celts, the months of the years were attuned to the lunar cycle, which means there's 13 cycles of the year, which are measured from full moon to full moon. And they're named after sacred trees. So I don't know how to do this. So the first Celtic month is Beth, The tree is birch, and it's from December 24th to January 20th. The second is Lewis. The tree's rowan, and it's from January 21st to February 17th. The third one's Newen, and the tree's ash, and it's from February 18th through March 17th. The fourth one's fern. The tree's elder, and it's from March 18th to April 14th. The fifth one is Sail. Definitely pronouncing all these wrong, which is really embarrassing. But the tree's willow, and it's from April 15th to May 20th. The next one is, here we go, Uath. UATH. The tree's hawthorn is from May 13th to June 9th. The next one is Duir, Duir. The tree's oak, and it's from June 10th to July 7th. The next one's Tinin, Tine. The tree's holly, and it's from July 8th to August 4th. The next one's Call. The tree's hazel is from August 5th through September 1st. The next one's Moon, Muin. The tree's vine is from September 2nd through September 29th. The next one's Gort. The tree's ivy is from September 30th through August 27th. The next one, I'm going to butcher so badly. I'm going to guess the N is silent and just say Getal. It's Ngetal. The tree's reed, and it's from October 28th through November 24th. And the last one's Ruis, Ruis. The tree's elder, and it's from November 25th through December 22nd. And there's no December 23rd because it is said that it is the day and the year in a day. In other words, the 4 quarter days that make up the extra day in a leap year. Then it starts going to actual plants and flowers, because it said from classical times, plants and flowers have been believed to possess supernatural virtues. Flowers are often used for special occasions, and a lot of it is used in medicine. They said a symbol of love could be roses. The white rose is an emblem of silence. I didn't know that. I thought that was so interesting. And then it said magicians use the number of petals in a rose for certain meanings. So 7 signified the 7 degrees of absolute perfection. 8 petals signified rebirth. And then some flowers that are used in love charms are forget-me-nots, sorcerer's violets, Elias, the blue periwinkle. And then they said that for plants for attracting luck, St. John's wort and lady's mantle were medieval alchemists' favorite to use. Other lucky plants, they say, are sunflowers, apple blossom, vervain, Solomon seal, impatiens, and heather. It said for financial luck, try jade, hazel catkins, and rosemary, and that lilac, honeysuckle, and an almond tree are said to bring wealth. It said if you want to have personal protection and ward off evil spirits, oak, rowan, hazel, and hawthorn are traditional favorites. And it said that to the Greeks and Chinese, the peony was sacred, and the betony, Betone, was preferred by the Italians, who used to say, sell your coat and buy betony. If you want to create an atmosphere of peace in your home, you should try getting lavender mignonette, Mignonette, hyssop, iris, chamomile, yerba santa, meadowsweet, hollyhock, holly, and ivy. In the last section they talked about before they even got into any of the spells were magic signs and symbols. And it said that wearing, keeping, or inscribing magical objects has gone all the way through ancient civilizations, and it said a talisman has the power to attract some advantage to its owner, whereas an amulet is preventative and warns of danger and evil. I still really want to do a whole podcast episode on all 3, talisman, amulet, and charm. I think that's the third one. So for mystical gemstones, it said that gemstones are especially prized for their natural beauty, financial value, and magic associations. And in the past, they used to actually set the stones in a ring or a small cage to wear around a chain on your neck. And it said the ring is a symbol of attainment, perfection, and immorality because it has neither a beginning nor an end. And it is said that that idea is what kind of inspired the wedding ring. And it said in the past, whenever a crystal, a precious stone was used in a ring, it used to actually also have a magical sign and sometimes a special herb to be placed under the stone so that the ring would be extra powerful with everything else. And then they gave the months January through December, but they actually gave different gemstones for it than our typical birthstones. This one said January is emeralds, February's bloodstone, March is jade, April is opal, May is sapphire, June is moonstone, July is ruby, August is diamond, September is agate, October is jasper, November is pearl, and December is onyx. And then the next section it goes into is signs and sigils. And it said that many traditional signs and sigils that are honored for their virtues are an integral part of their magic. And that was it. And then it gets broken up into 7 sections. And the first section of spells say look good, feel good. And these are about giving your body and mind a new outlook, essentially. It says these spells will increase your physical, mental, and spiritual sense of well-being with the help of Mother Nature. I'm not going to go into exactly what the spells are and do, but I will go into the little history that they give before it. Like in the first one, it is said that in the 14th century, a hermit gave a beauty potion made from rosemary flowers to Isabella, Queen of Hungary. Isabella, aged 72, was infirm, but after 1 year of using the hermit's potion, her strength and beauty had recovered to such an extent that the King of Poland expressed a desire to marry her. And it said that rosemary has been used for many, many, many years and is valued by herbalists as an effective stimulant. I also want to say, all these spells come from different cultures and beliefs. That first one they offered was a Hungarian one, and yet this one's a Celtic one. And is there anything fun here? It says the Celtic tribe saw St. John's wort as a symbol of the sun's healing and life-giving power. It is a king among magical plants and protects against negative influences. The next page for the spell has to do with peppermint. So it says that peppermint was used and loved by the ancient Egyptians, Greeks, Chinese, Japanese, and Romans. Greek athletes used to actually use peppermint oil as a muscle toner before competitions and more generally as a refreshing perfume. And it said that the name comes from the Latin menti, meaning thought, and the Romans used it to stimulate the brain. I thought this one was interesting. This is a Native American ritual that they gave to talk about, but it said, according to Native American beliefs, we are spiritual beings on a human journey, part of the one great spirit. It said that our bodies are basically like these shells that will return to Mother Earth when our time is up, but our spirits will return to the whole world, to the unseen world. It was also saying that for this spell, that the colors red, black, and yellow and white represent the races of humanity in the 4 quarters of the circle of life. Oh, and then we got a whole history lesson, that's right. So this whole history is actually where I left off, the page 34. It's about ancient magic. It talks about Egyptians and how they were considered master musicians in the ancient world, and that 10 measures of magic were given to the world. Egypt took 9 and the rest took 1. That's a famous quote from the time. And it is said that Egyptian magic developed into a complex web of beliefs in reincarnation and the ability to see divinity in the things, both the living and the inanimate. And it said they were one of the first to categorize magic into types, as in low magic, that was for the physical world of health, money, and luck, and high magic, which was associated with the spirit. They actually have a whole book called the Book of the Dead, which is a source of spells, rituals, and incantations to ward off danger and evil on the soul's long journey into the afterlife. Hieroglyphics were created to kind of preserve a lot of their magic. And one of their hieroglyphics was the Eye of Horus. And that is basically what has become changed to the evil eye. Because basically the reason how the Eye of Horus happened was Osiris and Isis were brothers. And Osiris' brother Seth kills Osiris out of jealousy. And Horus avenged his father by attacking Seth. But during the battle, Seth gorged out Horus's eyes. The eye was considered a symbol of the soul in ancient Egypt. So without it, he would be denied entry into the afterlife. It said Thoth, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, which is a bird-headed god of reckoning, returned the eye to Horus in the form of an amulet to gain entry into the underworld. So it said that Egyptians used to place precious amulets featuring the eye and the dead. Haitian, Wiccan, Voodoo, Obeah, and Indian mystical traditions inherited the symbolism of the eye as the all-seeing eye or the third eye. Also in Babylon, there was a lot of magic, and they developed the system of not magic, where they sought to control health, fortune, and love through tying and untying knots. And it is said that we inherited the use of wax figures in magical ceremonies from Babylons, and that they actually had a famous figure of a goddess of fertility and love called Ashtar. In Greece, although they were often seen as logical and scientific, they actually had a lot of magical beliefs that were cloaked in reason by the philosophers. So Pythagoreans, who were renowned as mathematicians, but they also practiced magic, though it infused their philosophical speculation. A really big part of Greek magic was the sacred quality of names. They believed that the life of a person is invested in his or her name. So names, alphabets, and letters were invested with great magical powers, like the word abracadabra. It said originally the words were written in the shape of an inverted pyramid and worn around the neck of a charm against evil. It said that the letters were also used to ward off illness, and that ancient Greeks were so protective of their names that they wouldn't even tell strangers their names because they didn't want anything ill happening to themselves. It also said that the Greeks were very big into sacrifices, and I will spare you all of the gory details it gave. The next spell that it talks about, it uses vervan, which was one of the Druids' most sacred herbs and used to cleanse their altars for divination as amulets and for their most important spells. It was also mentioned in witch trials because it was thought to make the wearer invisible and able to fly. So, in June 21st, there is a strawberry moon. At least that's what the book said. I don't know if it's every June 21st. So I looked it up, and the strawberry moon changes its day every year, so it is not always on the 21st, but it seems to always be around the summer solstice. But basically, it got this name because European farmers used to gather their strawberries and other crops by the light of the moon, and it is considered the door to the year because it is the time of maximum light and minimal darkness. So it's when the door symbolically opens to let the life-giving sunshine and all good things in and exclude evil spirits. And the last spell in this section talks about classical mythology and country lore. It said that the dew has always had magical significance as a beauty enhancer and giver to strength. Medieval alchemists collected dew for their potions and called it water from heaven. Ladies and country girls alike would go to the fields to meet the dew and wash their faces with it. And then the next set of spells is called Catching and Keeping, and these are 7 spells for attracting and keeping a lover. These are all about love. I thought this was a really cool fact. It said that the ancient rites that mark the passage from one stage of existence to another often include dance rituals. A lot of places throughout Africa, dance rituals are performed following a birth, the naming of a child, and all other great occasions. There's a part of Italy, Benevento region, which is well known for witchcraft. It said that they use a liquor called strega, and strega also is the Italian word for witch, and it said that strega has been brewed originally as a witch's potion. Did you know that the origin of the word honeymoon comes from honey people would eat around their weddings? In Italy, basil is worn as courting couples as an emblem of love. The next spell they talk about is like a vision spell, and it said that the Maya communicated between the world and the other world with words. All spirits speak whatever their maternal appearance, and words are their essential thread that link us to those spiritual forces. And then the next section, they take a break from the spells, and this section talked about the magic of the Americas. So Native Americans have the sacred circle or hoop. It is a circle representing the belief that life was a complex web where everything and everyone is connected. So it's saying that the circle reflected the belief that all life force, man or mineral, was equal. If one part of the circle was damaged, that would in time be detrimental to the other parts as we all share one Mother Earth. They also had a medicine wheel, which was used in over 500 different systems of belief in North America, and some of these wheels date back over 1,000 years. They were often made from stones and aligned to the summer solstice. Medicine bundles were also kept, and they often had feathers, pebbles, seeds, woods, and animal claws represented allies in the natural world. The bundles are then used for protection, seeking visions, and sun dances, and were considered sacred. It also said they wore feathers because they believed to possess spiritual qualities, which were embodied by the bird from which the feather came from. A popular one was the eagle, which they regarded as the most spiritual of birds and the best for vision and the ability to fly to great heights, carrying the prayers of the people of the Great Spirit. They had ritual rattles that were used to scare away evil spirits, and it said that Native American rituals and magic were designed to bring its people into harmony with themselves and as part of the circle of life. Now the Mayans, it said to capture the wisdom of the universe, the Mayans built vast and beautiful temples at the top of pyramids. It said that they made ball courts close to the temples and had a ritual game which included sacrifices and was played there to appease the life-giving powers. Now, they said Maya magic was based around the growing of maize, and that they used to make a special gruel and offer it to the maize god Ayman and other deities in elaborately painted vessels, and the gruel represented life and rebirth. The Mayans also believed that we have 2 souls, one of which was invisible and divided into 13 parts. And these parts could be stolen by evil witches and sold to the Earth Lord, Pooch. And shaman seers would try to find the missing piece with the aid of talking stones, which were used to focus spiritual forces for the visionary journeys. Talking stones or stones of light is what kind of led into crystal balls. The Inuit people contained a celestial world above and an underworld below, dominated by the goddess Sedna. So it is said that her father had found his daughter so unbearable and unruly that he took her far away out in the sea in a boat to cast her overboard. But she held on tightly, so her father chopped her fingers off, which turned into seals when they touched the water. And it said to them that the sea is the most important source of food, that they often perform mass rituals to ensure it's continued plentiful to get them through the year. Now, the next spell that they talk about, the fun fact they give for it, is that traditionally the wood of the spindle was used to spin wool, mostly by unmarried girls known as spinsters. A round stone with a hole in the middle was fitted over the end of the spindle to keep it turning, and so it grew association with the male and the female. And then it talks about how you carry out the spell. So the next, remember we were talking about roses before? So roses were emblems of silence. A white rose, or sometimes simply a symbol of a white rose, was worn by those wishing to speak secretly to each other. In Germany and other parts of the Low Countries, a rose was often sculpted or painted over the banqueting tables. Words spoken beneath it were not to be revealed. And then it said, amorous chatter in particular would remain secret, as the rose was sacred to Venus, the goddess of love, who was said to have blushed when Jupiter caught sight of her bathing, turning a white rose to red. And then the next spell uses marigolds and says that the marigold has long been a symbol of endurance. The word calendula comes from the Latin cleanse, which means the first day of the month. In the Mediterranean, its native climate, this flower blooms on the first day of every month of the year, giving an affinity to women in their cycle. In Britain, the marigold used to be called husband's dial or summer's bride, and was often used in wedding garlands and strewn before the bride's cottage doors. And it said that the marigold has been described as the comforter of the heart and spirits. The next section has 7 spells on the fame and fortune, so they're spells for wealth and success in your career or a business venture, and for special luck in money matters. Oh yeah, this was a cool fact about shoes, which is very random, but in many parts of the world, shoon, an old Scottish word for shoes, have special significance, partly because they are seen as a symbol of authority. It said that a father of an Anglo-Saxon bride would give one of his daughter's shoes to her new husband, who would then touch her on the head with it to symbolize the passing of authority over her from her father and her husband. And I kind of wonder if this is where like current day weddings stem from, where like your father gives you away to your spouse. I wonder if this is where it comes from. It came from a hand passing from a shoe to a hand, which is so much better. It says, as far back as the ancient Hebrews, people have associated shoes with the soul. Shoes were also thrown after boats to convey good luck, and for this good luck charm to work, the shoes must always be old. The next spell is another Native American spell, and it says, to Native Americans, the body is a manifestation of the spirit, and to solve a problem, you have to be in harmony with your spirit. And did you know that sweat lodges are associated with Native Americans, the ancient Celts, Russians, Japanese, and other European nations because they had their own sweat houses or baths? It says that sweat helps to remove toxins from the body, bringing both physical and spiritual balance. Oh, this one's pretty cool. It has to do with like oak trees. So it says that oak and acorns are linked closely to the British Isles, but the oak tree grows all over Europe. The ancient Druids planted sacred oak trees as guardians, and marriages took place under them. In England, some of these trees still stand today, which is actually crazy. But in the people of California, called the oak tree as their world tree, and it said that acorn symbolizes the cosmic egg from which all life, and the tree itself symbolizing the cosmic axis, sacred to the Earth Mother. So the acorn represents achievement and great effort, and the oak tree represents durability, resolution, and truth. Then the next section talks about African magic. We take a break from the spells. It said that in northern Africa, less than 1,000 years ago, the Sahara Desert was actually a fertile pasture land. In the Sahara and the Sahara regions, the universe was thought of as a cosmic tree. So people planted symbolic trees around the oasis to represent the tiers of the universe. A vine for the above world, a grenadine tree for the earth, and a fig tree for the world below. The Yoruba, hope I'm pronouncing that right. It's also hard because this person didn't use normal fonts. The font's like a little funky. But it said they carried out divination using palm nuts, and the ceremony was called the Ifa Oracle. The diviner was always male. In Central Africa, it says this equatorial forest region in the great mythical Africa, littered with secret societies, sorcerers, healers, and tree spirits. The old Nosoro secret society wore black masks with protruding eyes, played musical instruments, and had their own insignia. It said the chief of the Tiki was believed to be surrounded by a sacred aura that allowed him to see into the next world. His mysterious power was reinforced by the decorations of his face and garments and the possessions of magical objects. It said leopard teeth were used around his neck as a necklace to symbolize the animal's strength to him, and cowrie shells were worn in a band around his head, representing connection with spiritual forces. It says protection amulets made of natural materials such as nutshells and woods were carried in leather pouches as in most other African regions. And then in southern Africa, it said that most of the rituals that took place were collective for the benefit of the community. Then it gives what they would do to bring rain. I'm going to spare you of that, but let's just say there was a sacrifice. Or they would bury their children up to their necks in the ground and yell at the sky. The great serpent was seen as one of the prime forces of creation, with his head in the sky and his tail in the waters of the earth, linking the two together. The mythology of the cosmic serpent was common to a lot of regions. And then they use the word witch doctor. I don't know if that's the proper term to use or the right word to use, but it said they were both medical and spiritual healers, and they would often combine the two together. Oh, this spell that they gave, it's a Celtic spell. It said the spell originates from Ireland and is traditionally performed in February ad Imbolc, one of the 8 festivals in the Celtic calendar. Bridget, the goddess of creativity, is transformed from her winter appearance of the withered hag into a radiant spring bride, symbolizing new life. I thought that was interesting. Oh yeah, this is also cool. In almost every country it grows, the apple tree has been revered and thought magical. In England, King Arthur recovered from his wounds in the Vale of Avalon, the Apple Valley. In Ireland, apple trees were not allowed to be bought with money. They could only be bartering another living thing for them, as they were considered too sacred to be tarnished by money. I thought that was crazy. The next section of this book is Labor and Love, and this is 7 spells for family, harmony, and fertility. Oh yeah, this one has to do with the besom or broom. So there's many traditions linked to the besom or broom, not just in association with witches. In medieval England, besoms were regarded as essentially feminine tools, and if a woman wished to show she was not at home, she would set the broom outside her door. It said that the besoms are usually made from birch, heather, and broom twigs, and they were used for gypsy marriages. And it was known as broomstick weddings. The ceremony involved the couple jumping back and forth over the broom, holding hands all the while before a rush ring was placed upon the girl's finger. It said that besoms are still available, but brooms are also okay to use for that spell. The next spell has to do with mistletoe, and it said that mistletoe, or quote-unquote all heal, was a sacred plant to the Druids. It was a symbol of immorality and fertility and was closely linked with magic and medicine. Mistletoe was the soul of the great oak tree, and in the language of flowers, mistletoe means I surmount all difficulties. Mistletoe grows high in the branches of the trees and in the in-between worlds, and in golden with green when its host is bare and foliage. And then the next one talks about chamomile. It said that in Europe in the Middle Ages, chamomile was hung over babies' cots to protect them. In Anglo-Saxons, it was one of the 9 sacred herbs and would used as a calmative. In the language of flowers, chamomile is called the flower of equilibrium. And then the book talks about, in the next section, European magic. So the art of the wise. The word witchcraft actually means the art of the wise. Since the 15th century, the word has been solely applied to those practicing magic, whether male or female. And witchcraft is actually still it's practiced all over the world, so we're not going to talk about that next sentence. But in France, Espat's weekly meetings of witches still take place, and in Italy, La Vecchia Religione has many followers. So in the 16th and 17th centuries, a huge number of witches were sentenced and tortured to death, and the persecution of witches spread rapidly throughout Europe, and thousands of innocent people were killed. In England, 200 witches were executed on evidence given by a man named Matthew Hopkins, the Witchfinder. Now, what's actually crazy is that many of these people celebrate the pagan festivals and natural festivals of the seasons, and actually, Christian churches also held festivals on these days, but they changed them to call them saint days to dissociate the celebrations from the pagans, even though they were literally the same things. Another fun fact, that the cross actually dates back to pagan times. So thousands of years before Christ, the cross is a cosmic symbol, a tree of life connecting heaven and earth, the vertical arms representing spirituality, the horizontal arm, the earthly dimension. A cross was often placed inside a circle, which represented the sun and eternity. Together, they symbolize the earth and the revolution of the 4 seasons. It said this symbol was used for luck and protection in many forms of natural magic. So it's now known more as like a Celtic cross. It said that the animals in divination, the god of the witch cult was always called the devil, but devil actually means little god. So when a new religion surfaces, the god of the older religion often became the devil of the new one. And it said that the devil was believed to be reincarnated in a human being and animal. And some of the earliest examples of the devil appear in human and animal guise and recorded on the wall of the caves in southern France, which shows a stag skin wearing antlers. And it says very common in Germany and France for the goat to be disguised as the devil. There was also use of familiars all over Europe, and that the leader of a coven of witches would dictate which animal each witch would have as his or her familiar. In France, the familiar was always a toad. I was curious, so I looked up why it was always a toad in France, but it was saying something about translation and it being confused for frogs, which the English called France, but in a mean way. And it was also saying that toads are often associated with evil, which is why it was connected to witchcraft. Then there's rune traditions. In the Norse tradition, runes were and are still used for divination. The runic system used today probably came from the 3rd century BC. Each rune symbol represents a letter of the alphabet, but they also have a more magical meaning. It said that we're going to move on to the next one because it's a spell. And this one was an Egyptian spell. And it said that Egyptians trusted implicity in the power of magic. Their hieroglyphics tell us that. And then there's a quote that says, "The word creates all things. Everything that we love and hate, the totality of being. Nothing is before it has been uttered in a clear voice." The next spell talks about rowan. It said that rowan trees are thought to have come from the Norse word runa, meaning a charm. And the rowan is a tree of protection, and for hundreds of years, its wood has been cut to use as amulets. It said that you can often find rowans near ancient stone circles, and that the Druids used both the wood and berries in magical rites. In Scotland, many old houses actually have chimneys that are made from this tree. And it said on May's Eve, rowan berries were tied to cows' tails to protect them from evil spirits. The next section of spells is called High Days and Holidays, and it is 7 spells to enhance your enjoyment of holidays and festival days and to wish you good speed on any journeys undertaken. The first spell uses ginger, and it said that it has honorable history. It was prayed by Confucius, and in the Quran, the menu served in paradise included ginger. It relieves nausea during pregnancy and can be chewed raw or in crystallized form to prevent travel sickness. And then it was actually talking about how this specific spell should be performed on a Thursday, and that Thursday is named after the god of thunder and protection named Thor, and that in Norway, many people name their children Thor to place them under the god's protection. And then another spell they talk about is an amulet. It said the tradition of wearing or carrying an amulet for protection, particularly when traveling away from home, was practiced by all ancient civilizations. Specially commissioned and made metals formed many amulets, birthstones, and precious stones, as in monarchs' crown jewels, has special significance and were chosen for their virtues. And this is that a very popular ancient amulet is the Egyptian Ankin cross, which symbolizes morality and the power to travel onward. It represents both the male and the female and is known as the key of life. Oh, the next one's about May. So it says celebrating the merry month of May when spring is in its full glory is huge in Europe. May takes its name from Maya Majestus, the goddess of spring. It said that a sacred tree or maypole echoed ancient tree worship. In Scandinavia, the birch tree was favored. And then it said on May's Eve, couples would leap between the celebration fires before spending the night in the woods to ensure fertility. The blooming of the hawthorn marked the transition from winter to summer, and May 1st was the only day when hawthorn could be taken into the home in honor of the spring goddess. This sacred tree could only be cut for such an important purpose. Then it talks about the magic of the Far East. Takes a break. It says in India, Indian myth, magic, and religion has developed over the past 3,500 years by gradually incorporating new beliefs into existing ones. So as a result, India has a way more complex and diverse nature of beliefs than anywhere in the world. It is even said that India has more gods than men. That they also have an ancient book of hymns called the Rig Veda. And one of the hymns, Indra, is a king of the Hindu gods with authority over the sky, and he carries a thunderbolt in his right hand, which he uses to do battles with the demons to bring rain to the land every year before the rainy season. And it says that he drinks this elixir of immortality before every battle. And then in China and Japan, China is the oldest civilization in the world, and the material structure of the Chinese world is made up of 5 elements. And 5 is a magical number to them. And the elements are wood, fire, soil, metal, and water, which equal to the 5 seasons, which include the mystical center, the cardinal directions, also including a center into 5 planets. I hope that all made sense because that honestly did make sense. I'm kind of been talking for a while now and I've never had a podcast this long, so I'm going a little delulu here. They said that their Chinese New Year and other festivals are linked to the lunar calendar, and that fireworks and ceremonial drums and cymbals are used to drive off evil at the turn of the year. They also have yin and yang. Yang means sunshine and light and represents masculinity. Yin means shadow and darkness and represents femininity. And says yin and yang are seen as mutually dependent and representative of the natural laws of the universe. They also have in Japan, Shinto, which is the oldest belief system. It centers on the worship of kami, which is their gods, that inhabit all nature and human beings. And then in Southeast Asia, much of the cultural tradition of Southeast Asia has actually been influenced by China and India. And in Bali, rituals were performed at crossroads to expel devils. And one of the last spells in this section, it says that Yule means wheel, and in earlier times, this was the yoke of the year and the time of turning and going forward. Onions and salt are both purifiers and will help to ease your way over this period to make new beginnings. In Russia, the birch was used at Christmas time as a symbol of rebirth, and also at Whitsun when it was dressed in female clothing to welcome the summer in. And then I think this is our last section. Yeah, we're finally at the last section of this spell book. The spells book is only 140 something pages long, but the last section is Lucky Charms and Life Savers. And these are 7 spells for luck, an essential ingredient for a charmed life. But 3 of them were sealed, like the pages were stuck together and I had to rip them open. For the first spell though, it says that food has long been a symbol of magic. Writing on cakes and other types of food dates back to ancient Greece and goddess worship. Honey cakes were written on, candles lit and blown out, and the wishes on the cakes were eaten to transfer them to the eater. And then the next spell, it says Creeping Jenny. Look it up. It's apparently a plant. It's an ancient plant originally found in Northern Europe, but is now available all over the world. And it said in ancient mythology, it symbolized dependency, perhaps because it clings and grows all over everything. This next one is a Chinese sky magic for luck, happiness, and success. It said that air magic is used in China, where streamers and kites are released into the air with messages and pictures. The triad gods of happiness are often depicted, and these are Shaoxing, the god of long life, Fuzing, the god of happiness, and Luzing, the god of salaries. And it said sometimes these gods are represented symbolically: a bat for happiness, a deer for salaries, and a stork and pine for long life. Dragons, which are divinities of rain and sea, are also popular symbols. Sky or air magic is directed towards personal success, love, and joy. Raising the wind is an ancient form of sky magic which can be used to change your luck, convey you towards success. Now the next spell was one of the sealed ones, and this was a French spell to thwart a rival of your lover's affection, outshining rivals. This honestly didn't give any fun facts, but it said beware. The next one was just a regular one, and I'm just kidding. This is about the sinister side of magic. It's not even a spell. It said that alchemists and sorcerers, alchemy was a combination of philosophical, scientific, and religious beliefs whose origins are lost in the mist of time. Medieval alchemists reasoned that if nature had the ability to produce a tree from a tiny seed, that they could copy this natural process and transmute base metals into gold or silver. The Philosopher's Stone was the substance believed to have the power to perform this transmutation. It is also thought to be the power behind the evolution of life. Alchemists used the sun to symbolize gold and the soul, and the moon to symbolize silver in the body. The Philosopher's Stone was a combination of sulfur, salt, and mercury. Oh yeah, this is crazy to me, but this was called the sign of the cloven hoof. And it said that not all use the benevolent sign in symbols of natural magic, as these would only bring failure. Instead, the symbols had to be inverted or distorted to denote perverted power. The swastika was an example. It said it actually derives from a Sanskrit word meaning bringer of good luck. And in many cultures, it was used for centuries, a symbol of happiness and good fortune. Now, however, it is all full of evil and bad things. The pentagram is another example. It has been used in both good and evil, but depending on how it was inverted or broken up was how it was represented, if that made sense. And then it says clay, wax, and wooden dolls have been used in rites in attempts to harm an enemy for years. The dolls would be bound, struck with pins or nails, and burned, melted, or buried to cause the demise of the intended victim. It said the demonization of ancient times was used to attract selfish desires and gain power through any means with no regard for the harm that it could cause. Such magic is a dangerous art and should not be tampered with. And then the next spell was another sealed one. And this was an Eastern European spell to foil a jealous work colleague. It was called shadow boxing. And again, it said beware. Then the next spell was a plant spell. And it was pretty cool because it talked about what planets ruled what dates and what colors. The sun rules Sunday and the color is orange. The moon rules Monday and the color is white. Mars rules Tuesday and the color is red. Mercury rules Wednesday and the color is yellow. Jupiter rules Thursday and the color is purple. Venus rules Friday and the color is blue. Saturn rules Saturday and the color is green. The next spell talks about daisies. It said the name daisy comes from the day's eye, as the flower opens at dawn with the sun and closes as dusk. It is a symbol of luck and innocence because it is associated with children, and it is also a symbol of survival, as a daisy adapts to almost any growing conditions or landscape. And that was the last spell. Wait, I feel like there was definitely a third spell that was... Where's the third spell that was... I think we talked about that one, didn't we? So the first spell was a French spell to discourage unwanted attention. This is the one I didn't talk about. I think I skipped it. It was the Creepy Jenny one. I skipped it. The Creepy Jenny one was the other third one. But that's it for the spell book. That is all the spells in the book. But I thought it was so fascinating because I loved how there was history behind it all. And it wasn't just about spells and witchcraft, and we actually learned something, and I yapped for so much. So honestly, let's just jump right into our affirmation. And this is our last episode of Spooktober, so this is our last time using Whispering Woods Enchanting Secrets from the Forest by Jessica Lee. So thank you, affirmation deck, for your contribution to this podcast. And if anybody knows of any affirmation decks I should get or look into, or if anybody wants to send us an affirmation deck, I'm just saying, that would be cool too. I forgot to say, let's cue the ASMR shuffling. That's never ASMR shuffling. And I'm very tired. I've been talking for over an hour. We got one. Teach. Oh, I feel like this one actually goes I lost it. Pretty good with this podcast episode because I feel like witchcraft has a lot of negative connotation. And it's not bad. So let's cue the drum roll, please. It says our affirmation is teach. Inspire others and let nature be your greatest teacher. And that is it for our episode. So the next time that you see a stereotypical witch pull out a spell book on a movie or show, just know there's real spell books that you can get from the bookstore or online or anywhere else, and they're kind of fun. They actually have some history behind them, and you might learn a thing or two if you open it. Thank you for tuning into this week's episode of Hey Guys, it's Meg. You can follow Hey Guys, it's Meg _podcast on Instagram for updates and good times. Come back next Monday, where I'm pretty sure we're going to talk about a certain national day that happens to fall on the day the episode comes out. I'll see you all on the flip side. Peace out, Girl Scouts.